I can talk. I can talk.
You can do this. I believe in you.
Okay. What's up, guys? Welcome back to X Studios. Today is a very special episode because it's the first episode we are doing with guests. The first guest we have is a very well-known vocalist, top liner and singer, which had collaborations like Burak Yeter, like Case and many more. Oh, and also Maximus. I almost forgot about this. Please welcome Nino Lucarelli.
Hey, what's up, buddy? Thank you so much for letting me be the first guest on your channel. That's truly an honor. It's always awesome working with you, and I'm super excited to be here and hopefully help some others regarding vocals.
So Nino, we've been in touch like for 4 years, and now I'm really happy for you to be here on our YouTube channel. So how are things going?
Well, first of all, thank you. It's crazy that it's been 4 years. Fall in Line was our first escapade together, and I always look back on that song and think of some great times. What's new with me? I've just been writing and working on songs and still trying to collaborate, but everything now that I do is of course through Zoom because of the current state of the world, and we want to make sure that everybody stays comfortable and safe. So songwriters are now adjusting to looking through screens and writing over the internet. So that's what's been up with me, man. How about you? How are you dealing with everything?
And I imagine your workflow is changed since you have to work only on Zoom or on Skype or something like that.
Yes, it has changed a lot. Everything has gone from a workflow very much dedicated towards working in person, writing lyrics on actual paper sometimes, like working a lot with people in the same room, to now everything is all, special Pro Tools templates and Word documents and cloud-based things and Dropbox folders and all kinds of cool stuff. But it's in one way it's a bummer to not see people physically in the same room for so long, but in another way it's cool to see everybody innovating and creating super efficient ways to work together and always create, which I think is a good thing to come out of this,
So I've invited you because you are a very, very special guy recording vocal and processing vocals. I know, when we work together a lot, and he always sent me his vocals that were sounding like great, and I was like, how can you do this? So we spent 3 days here in Italy together, and you showed me some tricks, but it's nice if we can just share our acknowledgements through the people that are seeing this video. So it could be useful if you just have some tips. You can share some tips.
Sure.
And use all the time when you're recording.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you again for this opportunity. It was, first of all, I want to say those 3 days that we spent together making songs in Italy was my first time to Italy, and you guys showed myself and Mr. Brian Powell and Chad Cole the most awesome experience ever. I can't wait to come back, hopefully sometime soon. And we made some great music that I'm sure people will hear soon. Wink, wink. But my first tip, anytime I'm near a microphone with a vocalist, whether I'm the vocalist or recording, is, first of all, 2 main aspects when it comes to the microphone. What's around the microphone, and how far are you from the microphone? There's also a third one, what's going into the microphone. So, first one, what's around the microphone? Well, if you're, when we were in Italy doing our sessions together, we were in your studio, which was very well treated, isolated. You turned the air conditioner off before we started recording. We made sure everybody's phones were on silent. Like those little things, you got to think about that first, because microphones are sensitive, okay? And you want to make sure that what's going into that mic is what you want to go into that mic. You don't want people's cell phones ringing. You don't want all the echoes from a room that you shouldn't be recording in. So that's the first step. What's around the mic? Turn off the phones. Shut up the chatty interns. Just kidding. Be careful of your room. I work a lot with vocalists that are new to recording themselves, and I have a friend in New York. Okay, He's in New York City. He's in an old apartment. He can't just, his first reaction was to just record in the center of his room. But a lot of people don't realize closets can be your best friend. Not that you should go in the closet and shut the door because it'll sound too muddy. But what you can do is a simple thing for vocalists who don't have acoustically treated rooms. You can back it up so that your back is facing your closet, opened up, and all your clothes and pillows are in that closet. So that when you're singing, your microphone is pointing at you, but behind you is your closet that's open. You're right backed up against it. That will help you because your microphone is pointing at absorptive materials behind you. Clothes, pillows, whatever. That'll help cut down on some reflections. So that's the first thing you can do if you're recording in a bad space. Now, of course, if you're in a studio, that's awesome because you got treatment, you have panels, you have bass traps, you got everything you need to make it so that the room isn't too echoey or reverberant. But I always like to tell people that are new and are starting out, just get some absorptive things behind you. Whatever's behind you, put some pillows. If you have mattresses, put those behind you. You know, of course, then you can take it up from there. You can say, okay, well, do you have budget to help your room? Well, if you do, some of the things you can do are build some acoustic panels yourself. There's all kinds of online material on how to build acoustic panels for cheap. You can, if you have mattresses, you can build a room with mattresses. Stick 2 mattresses in the corner of a room like this. Here's the corner of the room. Stick 2 mattresses. Put your mic here so that behind you is the corner of those mattresses. That'll help. It's, you know, do what you can if you're starting out. The next thing you want to do after you are get your environment situation sorted, what's around the mic, when you're singing into the mic, you want a good amount of distance. You do not want to be singing into your mic like this because it will distort and you'll hear things like this. My lips are moving on the front of the mic and you're going to hear that in the mix. So you don't want to be right up on the mic like that. You want to be, I like to use the surfer bro handshake. Okay. And like that. That's my trick to get your distance. What's up, bro? Okay. That, the surfer bro. And if you do that and you have a good recording environment around you, this is already a great first start singing into the mic.
Yeah, because in my very short experience of recording vocals, I've noticed that even when the same guy comes in 2 different days and he records the same things, it seems like they are two different guys. So I was trying exactly to avoid this problem.
That could definitely be mic distance. So like that's why another thing using this is great. If you do this every time, you know you're at least in the same ballpark. Another thing though, I always like to tell writers and vocalists that record and produce themselves, write and record your verses in the same day at the same time. Try not to record verse 1 one day and then verse 2 another day, because those 2 parts need to be usually the same, you know, especially sections that are right next to each other, sentences that are all sung together. Do that at the same time because your inflection will change. Maybe you ate something differently the one day than the other that makes your throat sound different. Maybe you're warmed up and then the other time you're not. So singing everything at the same time helps. And of course, doing everything else that we mentioned, making sure the environment is the same and your distance is the same. And of course, then we get into the gain staging. So when it comes to gain staging, so now of course if we recap a little bit, we got the environment that you're recording in. You make sure that it's quiet. You make sure that it's controlled. You got your distance from your mic. You're making sure that you're not overloading the mic and you're not distorting it. Now we get into gain staging, feeding the mic the electricity that it needs to pick up your beautiful voice. So when we're setting gain, and what we mean by setting gain is usually the knob on your interface that your microphone is plugged into. I always tell people set your gain such that your level going into your interface never gets lower than -18 decibels but never higher than negative 10 decibels. And you can know that number by looking at the indicator on your interface if you have a meter, or you can open up your DAW and create a track and put no plugins on it, put the fader right at 0, and look at the level coming in from your microphone through your interface to your DAW, and check each performance, sing your verse over and over again at that distance we talked about, and set the gain knob so that it never gets louder than negative 10, but it's always louder than negative 18. So you're going to want an average of about negative 16-ish dB on your meter for your average part of your performance. The reason being, if you have a part that's lower than negative 18, you're going to need to gain it up after the fact. And you may approach the level of noise floor. If your recording is too quiet and you gain it up later, you're going to hear hiss, you're going to hear static noise. You could hear that stuff. So that's why you always want your gain staging to be above negative 24. Negative 18, we say, because that's already above negative 24. So if you're aiming for higher than negative 18, you're giving yourself a little bit of safety net, right? And then the reason that we say never above negative 10 is because that protects you from distortion. Just like how we say don't sing in the mic like this right up on it, that protects you from distortion on the mic itself. Well, keeping the gain stage so that it's never higher than negative 10 protects the interface from distorting at the preamp.
Talking about processing vocals, there are a lot of things I like to do, which I think that are pretty similar to what you're using. But for instance, I used a FET Filter Pro Q3 for the first stage. Then I used the Valhalla Vintage Verb, then CLA for the compression and all the sort of things. But I know you are using some special plugins that will make your vocal stand out. So if you can talk about it and talk about how many tracks you need to have a full vocal to send to the people that are working with you.
Absolutely. First off, I want to say FabFilter, all the FabFilter products are the absolute best that I've used. I think they're extremely clean for EQs and compression, and especially multiband. Those are a must for vocalists. I tell people that all the time. But my vocal chain starts out with, of course, I use the Slate ML1 microphone, and I love that because it allows me to change the microphone after I record, which I think is awesome. Most of the time, I use this is a C800G model, but it's aged 10 years. The reason I like that is because the high end on it is crisp but smooth, as opposed to a C800G that is brand new that's too crispy sometimes. I like that they let you put a Neve 1073 preamp after the microphone. I think that's really cool. And then the big part of my sound that I use for every record is a plugin by Joey Sturgis Tones and Howard Benson called Howard Benson Vocals. This is it right here. It's kind of a channel strip, if you will, an all-in-one. However, I don't use all of the pieces of it all the time. I use the preamp the input and compression channel, the EQ channel, and the output channel with some slight limiting. I don't compress a ton because I like to leave the producer that I'm working with room to further compress if they'd like. So I usually do 4 to 6 decibels of compression maximum on my vocals. Again, like we talked about with the gain staging, I drive the compressor probably, I feed it about negative 10 till that's my maximum that I want to hit the input on that compressor is negative 10, and then my threshold is set such that I get 4 to 6 decibels of compression. My EQing, I like to add anywhere from 3 to 5 decibels at 8,000 to 10,000 kilohertz. I like to scoop my mids, usually at about 800 in a fairly broad Q. I'll scoop anywhere from 4 to 8 decibels depending on the instrumental that my vocal is sitting over. I don't make it too thin though, because again, the goal is to leave some room for the producer to further EQ if they need to. And I usually take a decent amount of low end out of my voice just so that it's not too boomy, but again, not too thin. Again, at the output stage, after my compression and EQ happens, I again set it so that I am not going above usually between -10 and -6 decibels, never louder than -6, but average of -10, so that someone like Davide has a lot of room to play with, a lot of headroom to do more processing if he needs to. So after I kind of build my template out with my basic chain, which again, it's my slate microphone selection, followed by Joey Sturgis Tones, Howard Benson, followed by a de-esser from FabFilter, and I finish it off with FabFilter Pro Q for any finite EQ adjustments. Once I have my template sorted, we get into tracking the vocals and how many layers should there be for each section. And my general rule of thumb that I like to give people is, for verses, I only do one vocal layer. If I want to accent anything, I'll put one double underneath what I want to accent in the verse, and I'll put some spatial widening on that double. So something like, for instance, in this Joey Sturgis Howard Benson plugin, on the double underneath my verse, I would turn on this width section and adjust to taste just to throw that double on the sides. When it comes to a chorus, I usually do 3 layers of that chorus singing the exact same thing. One on the left, one on the right, and then of course my lead in the center. Something that I really like about using the Slate ML1 microphone and virtual mix rack is that on my lead vocal of the chorus, the center one, I can use a C800. However, on my vocal doubles on the left and right, maybe I want to use a different microphone. Maybe I want to use a U47, for instance. Reason why that might be cool is when you use the same mic and you do multiple layers over and over and over again, the same frequencies are going to build up on each other. If you have the ability to use, or in my case, emulate different microphones on every layer, it makes it easier to mix. Everything just kind of comes together because the different frequencies are living in different spaces, even though it's the same take, same line. So yeah, for my choruses, I do, like I said, one left, one right, one center. For certain harmonies, sometimes I just do a single harmony and I will turn on some spatial widening on that harmony just to throw it, even though it's one layer, it's still wide, a little bit wider than the lead. And I'll just tuck it under the lead just a little bit, as a harmony should be. It should not overpower the lead. Any of my ad-lib lines or specific lines that I want to be embellishments, not necessarily a lead vocal, I'll just usually do one, and then I'll automate the panning to happen in different places. Sometimes I'll turn a little bit of distortion on that, make it a little bit lo-fi, add some chorusing, just some stuff to tuck it in the mix and make it sound interesting, some delay. I do also sometimes I do formant vocals, and when I do formant vocals, this is something most people don't think about. If you want a specific formant vocal to sound a certain way, like let's say you want like a Medusa type formant vocal, you need to practice trying singing that line in different areas of your voice and then apply the formant effect. For instance, sometimes singing something falsetto and then dropping your formant octave and pitch and in formant, it'll get you the sound you want than if you were to sing it full voice and then drop it that octave. Sometimes you want to sing something really nasally and over accentuate things, because once you drop the pitch and do your formant effect, it actually ends up counteracting it sounding ridiculous, and it actually sounds the way you want it to. You get that clarity, because one of the hardest things when dealing with formant effects is pronunciation, understanding what's being sang. So that's one thing I feel like not a lot of people think about. Also, when it comes to formants or vocoders of any kind, rather than take the same layer and vocoding that layer that already exists in a lead vocal, you will get a more lush, wide vocoder or formant if you use a separate take and then formant or vocode that vocal, because the nuance of that layer being something different that's not exactly like that lead vocal, it's not the same file, it's going to make it separate better. I like to put my vocal doubles, so my left-right pan vocals, that's what I put through a vocoder because it's already a stereo file that's different than that lead, so it's going to let that vocoder sit on the sides better than if you were to just copy your lead vocal and try to vocode that and fake the stereo width. So those are my biggest tips. Of course, the number one tip being have a good template. Have a good template that can grow with you as you make more songs. Change it all the time. I'm always changing this template every time I work on a song. It's always updating.
Yeah, I also try a lot with some creative delays to help me on stuff, because I really love to have nice delays that don't exactly come out from the track, but if you sample the track and do like an automation for the volume, it will sound different. So you can just work on the delay without touching all the aspects on the main lead track or the track you're working on.
That makes sense. That's a good way too. If you're working with someone else, it's much easier for them to see when you're using a delay if you do it that way. That's cool.
So that's it, guys. We've had a long conversation with Nino. I hope you've learned something, because sure I did. Nino, thank you very much for being there. Hope you had fun, because I did.
Yes, man, it was a blast. Thank you so much for having me. And I think we talked about some great things that people can find useful. And of course, nobody be a stranger. They can DM us anytime, and we'll be happy to share more. But this has been a blast, brother. Thank you so much.
Thank you again, Nino. And about you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel here. And see you next week. Ciao.